Hello and welcome. My name is William Fukuda. I am the Scoutmaster of Troop 695 located in Irvine, California. We do consider ourselves a high adventure backpacking trip, so through the course of the year on our outdoor calendar, at least one, if not half of our total camping trips will be of the backpacking variety. In addition, every other year we have sent a crew consisting of 8 scouts and 4 adults to Philmont, New Mexico for a 12-day backpacking adventure. Philmont Scout Ranch is one of the 4 high adventure scout camps that is owned and operated by the Boy Scouts of America. So some of my gear recommendations are going to be with that particular trip in mind. So when you purchase gear for your scout to start with, that gear will last and grow with your scout all the way up to the Philmont Scout Ranch should your scout decide to join us on that adventure. So all of the gear I'm going to need for the weekend is going to have to fit in the back of one of these for the weekend. So let me show you the gear we use for backpacking with some recommendations. So welcome to the camp now that I've unpacked the backpack. We're looking here at a standard 2-person backpacking tent. Inside there will be the 2 sleeping bags, one for your scout, the one with his tent buddy, and the sleeping pads. Typically the scouts are going to work together in pairs, so they're going to work with their tent buddy. They'll split the tent up carrying it to camp, or they'll work together to set the tent up, and then inside they're going to place their sleeping bags and sleeping pads. So here we're going to take a look at the inside of the tent. You can see that inside it's going to be a little on the tight side, and there's the 2 sleeping bags, one for each of the scouts. And as we look around here, there's not a whole lot of room. Looking through the door, this is an area called the vestibule, and that's actually where your scout's backpack's going to be stored through the night. So your backpacking tent's rated by the number of sleeping bags it can hold. A 1-person backpacking tent holds 1 sleeping bag. A 2-person backpacking tent holds 2 sleeping bags. So if you wanted to bring the gear inside, you're actually going to have to upgrade to a 3-person backpacking tent to have the 2 sleeping bags and the extra space for the backpacks. Most of the scouts will actually just stay with a 2-person backpacking tent and then store the gear on the outside vestibule. Then the next piece of gear is going to be a sleeping bag. There are 2 types of sleeping bags. You have a synthetic sleeping bag or a down sleeping bag. Each of the 2 fills is going to have both its advantages and disadvantages. So for this particular sleeping bag, this one happens to be the REI Youth Lumen. It is a synthetic fill sleeping bag that is rated to about 20 to 25 degrees. The advantages of a synthetic sleeping bag is that they tend to be less expensive to start with. They're also easier to care for. The synthetic fibers make it easier to just throw in the washing machine for you. On the other hand, synthetics compared to down tend to be a little bit bulkier and take up a little bit more space. They also tend to be, for the same temperature rating, a little bit heavier. So you're trading off a little bit of cost versus weight to get a synthetic sleeping bag. Now the other sleeping bag is a down-filled sleeping bag. This one happens to be a down-filled sleeping bag rated to about 20 degrees. Down tends to be a little bit softer, so it's more comfortable. It is going to be more expensive, but it will be lighter for the same temperature rating, and it tends to squeeze down and pack to a much smaller size, so it's easier and takes up less space in the backpack. They are a little bit harder to care for, so that you have to wash it with a special detergent. Again, temperature rating of about 20 degrees with a weight of 3 pounds or less. One more quick note on synthetic sleeping bags. Synthetic sleeping bags come in various qualities, so that some of the less expensive sleeping bags for synthetic can be very big and bulky. They're going to save you money, but something like this weighs over 6 pounds, although it's synthetic. Again, you're going to want to look for something under 3 pounds. This was a REI Youth Lumen, and it's compressed to a much smaller size. In fact, I can even get it down a little more on the compression sack to a much smaller size. It weighs just over 2 pounds and would be the preference, although a little more expensive, to something that's going to be this big and this bulky. So another really important part of your sleep system is the sleeping pad. And the sleeping pad is an insulating layer that goes underneath the sleeping bag and allows the scout to have some insulation under the cold ground. There are a couple different types. You have a closed foam or a closed cell foam sleeping pad, which is the recommendation. They're inexpensive to start with. They're easy to use. And these are actually puncture proof. So with the closed cell foam, if you put the tent down on a sharp thorn by mistake, you're not going to pop the sleeping pad or the sleeping mattress. Now, The other type of sleeping pad that you can use is an inflatable air mattress. This one happens to be about 2.5, nearly 3 inches thick. It's nice and cushy and comfortable, but you can see as an inflatable pad, if it gets a sharp thorn and it pops, it's going to deflate at night. And then your scout's going to find themselves on a cold ground with a deflated sleeping pad. Now the air mattresses, although more comfortable, are also much more expensive. So if your scout pops that and ruins it, it's going to cost you over $100 to replace it. The foam ones are under $40 and are perfectly suitable. The only disadvantage of the foam one is that it's big and bulky, but most scouts are just going to strap it to the outside with the compression straps on the outside and just carry it on the outside of the backpack. So it's not really a big deal. Now the other thing that you're going to look for is a backpack. This one happens to be a youth backpack. It on the back has an adjustable torso length so that you can start off with a smaller torso for your smaller scout. This one will actually increase to about 6 inches so that as your smaller scout grows, the pack will grow with them. So if you start off with the youth size with a adjustable torso, as your scout grows, the backpack can grow with them. Now, my backpack that I showed you earlier is an adult backpack. It will adjust, but only to about 4 inches, so it's a much smaller range that the backpack can grow into. Now, the other thing with backpacks is not necessarily the size of the backpack, it's the fit of the backpack. So you can have a great backpack, and if it doesn't fit, it's going to be uncomfortable for the scout. Now, that goes for the young scouts, the growing scouts, and my adult leaders that come on the backpacking trips. You want to make sure that you spend the time at the local REI trying on the backpacks for fit and comfort first, and then you worry about the other aspects of it. The other thing is that I'm asked, what size backpack should I get? This particular backpack is about 65 liters. Now, for an overnight backpacking trip, 65 liters is going to be on the larger side. However, for Philmont, New Mexico, 65 liters is the smallest size that you're going to want to bring to Philmont. Philmont's website actually advocates for a 70 to 80 liter backpack. That might be a little on the larger side. You can get away with a 65 liter backpack, but if you buy a smaller backpack now and you decide to go to Philmont later, you're going to have to upgrade because the smaller ones just won't cut it, and you're going to have something about 65 liters. So look for a 65 liter backpack with an adjustable torso, but keep in mind it's got to fit first. So the other thing your scout's going to want to have is his own personal mess kit. Now, you don't need to have anything fancy because by and large we're going to be used ready to eat, dehydrated, packaged backpacking meals. This one happens to be by Mountain House, and to prepare these, all you have to do is pour in some boiling water. You wait 10 minutes, and then if you use a long spork or a long spoon, you can eat directly out of the package. So you don't necessarily have to bring along anything else. Now, some of the scouts actually don't want to or would like to eat out of a standard bowl, so they do make backpacking bowls. This one's by Sea to Summit. It's a collapsible silicone bowl. It just collapses down so it fits in the backpack much easier. This is just a simple backpacking plate, plastic, also by Sea to Summit. And this one's actually a bowl that has a lid. It's also by Sea to Summit. They're all plastic. They're fairly lightweight, very durable. Although you don't necessarily need them unless you're trying to bring something else that needs cooking or a bowl, like some oatmeal or something like that. So my recommendation is to start with just a long spoon or something very similar in the Mountain House meals. To boil the water, the recommendation for the troop is to use a backpacking stove called a jet boil. These are neat devices where they're all pre-packaged in one unit so that you have the lid. You have the burner, which is designed to fit directly onto the bottom. And then the stove. It also comes with a orange stand. It fits on the bottom, and it makes it more stable for your scout, so it's less likely to tip over. The other thing is it has a neoprene cozy that makes it safer to grab, so the scout has less of a chance to burn himself with the hot water. And many of the models have a temperature sensitive logo that turns yellow when the water is boiled and ready to serve. So we like the scouts to use the Jetboil. Now many of the scouts in the troop already have a Jetboil, so your scout, if they're just starting out, can ask their tent buddy if they have one and then borrow the Jetboil, because we encourage the scouts to share and work in pairs for their tent buddy. So here you can see I've changed. I'm now out of the field uniform and into an activity uniform. There are 3 rules for dressing in the backcountry: no cotton anything, no cotton anything, and no cotton anything. The problem with cotton fabrics, like a t-shirt, is that once they get wet, they will take forever to dry. And that's not a big deal during the day, but a cold, wet t-shirt at night poses a very, very real risk for hypothermia. So we like to avoid cotton clothes, and that does include socks and underwear. So most scouts are going to prefer a hiking pant. They're polyester or nylon. They actually have a zip-off function where you can zip off the lower leg and convert them into shorts, so most scouts like those. However, if you don't want to go out and purchase brand new clothing just to go backpacking, then if you had some appropriate athletic clothes at home, like say a pair of polyester nylon style sweatpants, they would be more than appropriate, or even shorts. And since your scout already has a very similar synthetic or polyester athletic shirt, that would be also more than adequate for backpacking in the backcountry. Almost everybody has some fleece, so you should already have a fleece top and a fleece layer. Although if you're going to wear a puffy jacket, I would ask you to use a synthetic puffy jacket or a down jacket. The problem with down, however, is that if it gets wet, it's going to lose most, if not all, of its insulating properties. So if your scout brings along a down jacket, please make sure that your scout also has an appropriate rain jacket to go along so that they can wear it over the puffy jacket in case it rains and keeps their down dry. It's really important in the backcountry that when you're using down material, such as a down jacket or a down sleeping bag, you take as much care as possible to prevent it from getting wet. And don't forget, the no cotton applies to both socks and underwear. So your scout's going to want to have a good pair of hiking boots. They don't have to be very fancy, and they certainly don't have to be the waterproof boots that are treated with a waterproof membrane such as Gore-Tex to make them waterproof. But you're going to want to make sure that the boots fit first, because you don't want a scout to have a blister or a hot spot. If we have a scout with a blister and sore shoes, they're going to be an unhappy, grumpy scout. So the most important aspect of the hiking boots is they fit and they fit well. The scout should also break them in a little bit, wear them once or twice. You don't necessarily want to get them out of the box, come on the trail as the first time you're trying out your hiking boots. Just a few things to get started. At the very minimum, you're going to start with some of the items that are personal fit items, like a hiking boot, the sleeping bag, and the sleeping pad. Some of the other items that you have, like the backpack, this one can be rented at REI, and this tent can actually be rented at REI. For something like the Jetboil, your scout can borrow a Jetboil within the troop, and there's plenty of scouts that have them that they can borrow from. So to start with, hiking boots, sleeping bag, sleeping pad, the mess kit, and those are the things you need to get started. Hopefully your scout already has appropriate polyester, no cotton clothing at home, that you don't have to go out and buy new backpacking clothes. And for the backpack in the tent, you can always rent those at the local REI. So I hope you found some of this information useful. For those of you who do have access to our troop website, under the camping information tab, most of this information is listed there already. There is a camping information guide regarding the clothing. There's a Backpack 101 gear guide about things to look for when buying gear. And there's a Backpacking Basics 101, which is a simplified version of this particular video. I also have a backpacking cheat sheet, so that if you wanted just to take the sheet with some gear recommendations, take it to the local REI. The salespeople can help you pick out those particular items without spending a lot of time. I thank you for watching the video, and I hope to see your scout out on our next backpacking trip soon.